Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Tuesday, April 22nd edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you as always from the beautiful Well Point Studios here in historic downtown Lowell. And today, joined by, well, you know what that means, gang. I'm joined by the empty seat, so that means it's a Trigger 'em Tuesday edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm not sure I'll trigger folks all too much, except when I get to the very end when I talk about one of my pet peeves, the dreaded Lord Overpass. But we're going to preview tonight's Lowell City Council meeting. Some interesting stuff on there. Always find interesting stuff, even when the agenda looks to be uneventful. So we'll take a quick peek at that, and I say quick, and then I always say it's going to be quick when I'm here by myself, and then I ended up just blabbing and it goes long. But I'll stop blabbing and get right to it. First, let's thank our Daily Pulse sponsors, Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, certified appraiser in both states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, Ray Booten is your man. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you as well to our friends at WellPoint. WellPoint is the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Thanks to WellPoint, thanks to Ray. We got a bunch of other sponsors to thank as well, but let's get right to it. We'll do that in a couple of seconds. First, let's start with tonight's City Council agenda. Not a lot overly controversial on there, except there is, well, wait, who knows? Maybe this will get controversial, maybe not. But there is the Lowell City Manager's contract on the agenda. The 3-year extension that was voted on a couple of months ago by the council. The council voted, I believe, 7-4 was the final tally to offer the manager a 3-year extension. He has about 2 years remaining on his contract, a little more than 2 years at the time, but now as we're getting into it, he was hired in April of 2022. We've now completed the 3 years, so the 3-year extension will give him a 5-year run from here on out. It would extend him to an 8-year run if he stays to the completion of the contract, putting him up there in Bernie Lynch territory in terms of tenure for recent city managers. There were some in the past that had gone about that and maybe even a little bit longer. But we talked a little bit about it yesterday. City Councilor Corey Robinson, District 2 City Councilor Corey Robinson was our guest on Monday's Daily Pulse. And he talked about he wanted to kind of go behind the scenes in executive session and look at this and discuss it and do the negotiation. The negotiation was handled by the mayor, Mayor Dan Rourke, and I assume the city solicitor was part of that discussion as well. But they have come up with the contract for the manager, the agreed upon contract, it appears, and they are putting it on the agenda for a vote tonight. No executive session unless there's a move tonight to go in there and it succeeds. But let's take a quick peek at a couple of the things in here on the manager's contract. First, actually, let me come back to me first. So Tom Golden started as city manager as we mentioned, in April of 2022. He was making $235,000 a year in his first year. His current pay rate, and this is on the agenda tonight, it tells you what he's to be paid for the rest of this year before he's eligible for COLA, cost of living adjustments, in on July 1st. But his current pay rate is $264,400, give or take a few cents there. So I'm going to call it 264, or we can call it 265, just to give just to round it off. Let's give him a raise. Let's call it 265. He started at 235, so that's a raise of $30,000 or $10,000 a year over 3 years. I did the math, didn't do it in my head, did it on a calculator. It comes out to about he's received up to this point about a 4.25% raise each year. And it's kind of based on cost of living adjustments, which he has been getting and will continue to get in the new deal. The same rate as other employees in the city of Lowell have gotten. And I think that's in line with the employees down below, not the department heads, that 2.75 cost of living adjustment. And then he's also been entitled to a merit increase based on his evaluation from the city council. The city council evaluates him every year, and I believe that comes due in January. I think by January 1st, he gets an adjustment as well. So it looks like, I think the number was 4.25% per year that I kind of came up with. Doing my quick math, it may have been different. It may have been 4.4 in one year, gone down the next year, whatever the case may be. But it looks like he's getting about 2.75 for cost of living and another 1.5% merit increase, if my math is correct. I'm sure one of the counselors will correct me if my math is not correct. But going back to this thing right here, and this is the part that in the contract, it spells out his salary earlier, his work conditions, what he's expected to do, his hours. He doesn't punch a clock, so he's expected to work whenever he needs to work, which is basically 24/7, unless he's on vacation. And are you ever really on vacation when you're a CEO of any entity? But here's the part I've highlighted for you. The manager shall be entitled to a merit increase to his current salary upon a successful performance evaluation as determined by a majority vote of the city council. The amount of the increase shall also be determined by a majority vote of the city council. So basically the council, he's going to get his cost of living increase as every other employee does, and then he's going to get a merit increase based on if the council, and they spelled it out too. He has to get a score of 75% or better. I think right now they kind of rank it, you get in a bunch of different categories. You get a 1 through 4, 4 being exceptional, 3 being good, 2 being fair, 1 being below par, etc. Anyways, if he gets an average of 3 out of 4 or above, 75%, see, I can do that math in my head, he is entitled to a merit increase that is determined by a majority vote of the city council. So the council controls both his evaluation and what that merit increase will be. And again, going back to the previous years and how his salary has increased from the $235,000 to the $264,400 that it's at now, it appears that merit increase has been somewhere around the 1.5% mark. There was some speculation I had heard behind the scenes that the manager's merit increase was going to be tied into other department heads, and that would be, because department heads have seen a much more significant increase in the past, that it would, the manager's merit increase could be far more significant. I don't think it's tied into it. It doesn't appear that it's tied into it. It basically appears the council is going to determine what the manager's increase will be going forward, assuming he is entitled to it. He can also be removed if his performance is deemed unsatisfactory with enough notice, and there's a whole process for all of that. Needless to say, I don't anticipate this part to be overly controversial, nor should it be. I think the controversy really kind of began and ended with the last vote in February, I believe, when Councilor Rita Mercier brought forth the motion to offer a 3-year extension to the manager. As we said, that passed by a 7-4 vote, and even the 4 voting against offering the extension at the time, negotiating the extension, even those 4 all said, hey, the manager's doing a very good job. It's just not the time now. Councilor 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 brought forth some concerns about, what's the message that goes out to other employees and tied in, and, are they going to say, well, we want to come in and renegotiate and blah, 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 blah. And, I think the manager, when he was in here following that discussion, said if they want to come in and try to negotiate long-term deals with small increases, then so be it. It appears the manager is where he is getting what everybody else is getting. The one thing that may be controversial or may lead to some discussion tonight about this was yesterday when we had Councilor Robinson on. He mentioned he thought this should go into executive session because it's he's called it a contract negotiation. So it should be an executive session first to negotiate, then the public vote to accept whatever is done. I reached out to Mayor Rourke to get his thoughts about that. And it appears that the negotiation was done by Mayor Rourke, and as I said, I believe the city solicitor, as the motion in February said, and asked the mayor to enter into negotiations with the city manager on a 3-year extension. And once that passed 7-4, the mayor entered into the negotiations, an agreement was struck, and now the vote is going to take place. And if it takes place as it appears it's going to take place on the agenda tonight, it's going to be a public vote, which I got to tell you, I kind of like. I don't like things going into executive session. I've said this before. I think all contract negotiations should be public. When the unions are asking to negotiate, whether it's teachers, police, fire, parks, DPW, you name them, they're negotiating with your money. It's taxpayer money. Taxpayers should know exactly what's happening. And they should also know where councilors stand on these things. Who fought back against the big pay increase, whether it's for the manager, whether it's for the teachers union or the parks employees, pick one. I want to know what goes on in these. And we get some executive session minutes released afterwards, but we're told that during the negotiations, we can't know it because it might jeopardize the city's negotiating position. Will it, won't it? But it appears in this particular case, the negotiation is done. And now a salary has been agreed upon, a new contract, a 3-year extension or a 5-year contract from here on out, whatever it's going to be termed as, has been negotiated. It's been agreed upon by the mayor and the solicitor who are authorized to enter into the negotiations. And it appears to have been agreed upon by the manager. And now it's coming up for the council to actually vote on it, which, again, I guess they could vote to go into executive session and maybe try to negotiate some other points and go back and reopen the negotiations and whatnot. Will that be any different than the vote will be if it's taken tonight? I doubt it. So why not do it in public? Why not just put it forward? And that certainly appears to be Mayor Rourke's thinking. I won't put words into the other councilors' mouths because I haven't heard from any of them directly. I did reach out to Councilor Rita Mercier, the maker of the motion, but haven't heard back. But I did get a statement from the mayor as to why we're going forward and actually doing this publicly on the council floor, an open meeting vote versus go behind closed doors to have this. Again, I don't know, would it be a negotiation behind closed doors or would it just be the same vote we're going to have publicly and then they'd come forward and either take the same vote publicly or people could ostensibly change their vote on, from executive session to the public, whether they would or not. I don't know. This is just speculation. But here's the quote from the mayor. And it certainly appears that the mayor is not, as far as the mayor is concerned, the negotiation is over. And now it's time for the council to approve it. What is the will of the body? Here's the quote the mayor gave, and I want to get this just right, so I've written it down. Mayor Rourke says, "It's simple. If you support the administration and the direction the city is moving in, you vote yes. If you do not, vote no." End quote. So it appears, as I said leading into it, that the mayor says, you told me to negotiate. The council authorized me as a body to negotiate. I negotiated. This is what's agreed upon. Seems to be in line with the first 3 years of the contract, unless I'm missing something in there. And I'm sure people will parse it and have parsed it, and they'll be ready tonight if there's any opposition to it or whatnot. But the mayor is saying, look, here it is. It's simple. Do you support the administration and the direction the city is moving in? It's an easy vote. If not, you vote no. And it appears the mayor's of the mind, there was nothing in there about, well, let's go to executive session or whatnot. He didn't say anything. It appears, let's do this publicly. Let's have a public vote instead of executive session. I'm curious how this will play out. And this is where there's always room for a little bit of political drama and whatnot. My hunch is, based on Councilor Robinson's discussion with us yesterday, there will be some effort, if not by him, maybe somebody else, to say, can we go back and talk about this in executive session? My hunch is that's going to go down to defeat, and you will then have a public vote. My other assumption is that the 7 councilors who voted to enter into the contract negotiation discussions with the manager are probably going to vote yes on this deal. It doesn't appear any different than the first 3 years of the deal. It appears to kind of follow the same terms. Now, the money figures are different because his salary is escalating every year. But for those 7, it's been, hey, we like the job he's doing. We voted in February to give him a 3-year extension. Here's the negotiation. The contract seems along the lines of what it's been. I can't see any of those 7 voting no. Mayor Rourke, Councilors Belanger, Dakota, I'm going to make sure I get them all here. Yem, Scott, who am I forgetting? There's 2 other. 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲, and I know I'm forgetting one more along the way. Apologies. Did I say Belanger? Anyway, it was a 7-4 vote. The 4 who said now's not the time to enter into extension negotiations: Councilors Wayne Jeunesse, Councilor Eric Gitcher, Councilor Corey Robinson, and Councilor Vesna Noon. How do they vote tonight? That's what I'm going to be watching, because is it, okay, well, we said back then, no, we don't think now's the time, so we don't support this. Or, well, that vote is said and done. We've moved forward, and now we have to say, is this a fair deal to enter into? Do you vote yes or no? I think the way the mayor put that in his quote to me, and I don't know if he'll actually say that tonight on the council floor, but it's simple. If you support the administration and the direction the city is moving in, you vote yes. If you do not, you vote no. Appears the mayor is not saying, do you support the manager or not? Do you support the administration or not? Do you think he's doing a good job and the city is moving in the right direction or not? Vote yes, vote no, however you have it. Is it that simple? Is it ever that simple in Lowell? Probably not. But I will be curious to see how the 4 councilors who have previously voted to not enter into negotiations yet, to wait a year, let the next council do it, etc., how they do it. Will they stick by those guns, or will they, now that the horse is out of the barn, for lack of a better term, and the negotiations have been done, the council made its vote, you vote majority in February, 7-4, said, yes, let's give the extension. Now they have. Do they think this is a fair? Are they going to vote on the deal based on the merits of the deal, the fairness of the deal? Or will that whole, well, on principle, we didn't think that there should be an extension, so we're going to stick by that and just vote no now? And will that discussion be framed as, going forward, once that vote is taken, do you support the administration or do you not? Marty Laurie, Mondays with Marty. He joins us here periodically, former Lowell City Council. And he said back in January when he did his prediction show, he's repeated it multiple times since, much to his chagrin, because he's getting flack every time he goes out in public. I need to bring him back, get him some more flack. He said, he goes, there are currently 4 votes against the manager. And in this upcoming election, it'll be about the manager and the manager's future. Now, the manager's getting his new contract. I'm going to guess the manager's going to get his new contract by a 7-4 vote tonight, if not even more. How is the vote tonight interpreted going forward? How does it play out on the campaign trail in those races that are being contested in the districts, in the at-large races as well? Right now, there's one at-large declared candidate. Who knows if any others come up forward? But what I thought was going to be a pretty uneventful thing once they decide not to go into executive session, based on the statement of the mayor, could get interesting. I don't think there'll be drama in the vote. I think there might be some interesting discussion, and then the follow-up. Do you support this administration in the direction the city is moving in? Yes. If not, no. In full disclosure, if you've been watching the Daily Pulse, if you've been watching other Inside Lowell podcasts, I have said that I support giving the manager an extension. I think he's doing a very good job. I think this council is doing a very good job. I think they work well in harmony, despite some, we had the ADUs, we've had other issues that have kind of, gotten kind of spicy on the floor, but ultimately, the Lipoli negotiations, Hamilton Canal, et cetera, but ultimately, the council is moving the city in what I think is a very good direction. I think the manager is playing a big part in that. I think he's young enough that, and I think he's got a vision for the city that if he's allowed to stay on another 5 years, if not longer, sorry, I don't want to even start that discussion yet, but I think if he's allowed to stay on, I think it gives him a very realistic opportunity to put that vision into motion. And that involves, the link thing, which is, coming down very quickly with UMass Lowell, but also with the Frontrunner City thing, which is still in the developmental stage. And we're kind of still waiting to see what's the next announcement, what's the next big thing regarding Frontrunner cities. Excuse me there. I think locking this manager up, I think him working in unison with this particular group of counselors, however the election turns out, I think it's a good thing for the city. And even if there are challengers to the incumbent councilors and they end up being successful, I think it would behoove them to keep the city moving in this direction and not go back to an era where, we weren't shooting for the stars with frontrunner cities and Link and all this other stuff. And instead we were like, well, let's just see if we can, find housing for the homeless and whatnot. Not that this administration, this council isn't attempting to do it, but I've said this in the past and I'll say it again. I think prior city councils and I think prior city managers were far too deferential to what I call the poverty industrial complex. The folks who would rather keep this city more like Lawrence than to strive for it to become Cambridge. I think this manager has done that. I think this manager's vision, I think you're seeing it play out. I think you'll see it play out even more in the next 2-3 years. And I credit this council for standing up in that same regard. I think, if you listen to some of those discussions when the quote unquote activists come to the city council floor over the last year and a half, even 2-3 years, it's been a far different room. The council chambers have had a far different feeling than they did 4 years ago when I was very often frustrated at the fact that who's running the city, the administration and the council or the nonprofits? I think now our elected leaders are running the city. And there's a role for the nonprofits. And I think they've adjusted to the role quite well. I think you're seeing it, differently as some of the new, and I know a lot of the bigger organizations have new executive directors or CEOs, whatever those titles are. But I think they too have adjusted to this council, to this administration. And I think you're seeing a lot less of that contentiousness and people rowing the boat in the same direction, both the elected leaders, the appointed leaders, and ultimately those down below who are, tasked with helping to cure / solve or alleviate some of the issues, such as homelessness, such as the housing crisis, such as vagrancy, etc. I think there's a lot more teamwork right now than there had been in the past. And when there is a disagreement, I think the elected officials are the ones running the show as opposed to those who are unelected. And I don't think that was always the case. I feared it wasn't. I don't know how you feel. I don't know how some of the electeds feel, but that's just my personal take. And so I think if we can keep the city moving in this direction, I think we're moving down 93 and 95 towards Cambridge and Somerville and away from 495 North towards Lawrence. No disrespect to Lawrence, but that city is still struggling to kind of grow out of what it's been dealing with. I think Lowell has far surpassed it for a number of reasons. My take on the manager's contract tonight, again, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I just looked at the clock. I've already spent 25 minutes on that. I promise I won't go as long on the rest of the discussion. Want to just quickly thank our Daily Pulse sponsors. Remind you that you tuned into the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse on this Tuesday, April 22nd. It's a Trigger 'em Tuesday edition of the Pulse. I'm going to trigger you folks in a few minutes here when it comes to my favorite topic, the Lord Overpass, or one of the banes of my existence. First, let's thank our sponsors, Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, certified appraiser in both states as well. Find them online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that feels like home. What feels more homey than a Washington Savings Bank coffee mug filled with water? I promise, it's just water. Don't look at that clear liquid. I am stone cold sober. Washington Savings Bank. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell, Southern New Hampshire since 1925. That's a century, folks. The Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in Greater Lowell through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis E. Prevention Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell has counted on since 1982. Sorry, I got my dates wrong. And last but certainly not least, the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing you all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. Pirates back home this Sunday at the Tsonga Center. We've got another Inside the Pirates podcast that's going to drop later on this afternoon as well. Get to meet another one of the Pirates stars that you see and root for on the field. All right, one other item from tonight's, in terms of contract negotiations from the City Council and the City Council meeting, the auditor's contract is also on the agenda. A vote to accept a new 3-year agreement going forward with the city auditor, 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 𝐏𝐿. It looks like her salary is coming in at about $184,000, if I read that correctly, which is kind of in the range of what surrounding or what similar communities pay. If I've looked at like Cambridge, I've looked at like Somerville and whatnot, and they seem to be in that range, and they've been in that range for a while. In my town, the town of Chelmsford, I don't think they call it an auditor. I think they call it a town accountant. $160,000 a year for a community. What is Chelmsford? Less than half. Is it a third the size of Lowell? I don't see anything controversial there. And I'm also, it looks like the Lowell Public School, the assistant superintendent of finance, which is that the school department's version of the city auditor, I'm guessing. They're at $184,000. So it looks like the auditor's contract is coming in at that. Again, I don't anticipate any controversy on that front, but you never know. Contracts, money gets really interesting, especially in election year. So we've got the manager's contract, we've got the auditor's contract. The rest of the agenda, as I pop it up on our screen here, looks relatively uneventful. You can see motion 5.1, Councilor 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 wants to send a letter to the state delegation and the Speaker of the House in opposition of that Yes in God's Backyard bill. That was the main thrust of our discussion yesterday with City Councilor Corey Robinson, who wrote an op-ed that we published on InsideLowell over the weekend, speaking out against it. I think from my initial readings, from my initial interpretations, I think that's a horrible idea, and I hope the council does vote to push back on it. That said, the bill is co-sponsored by 18th Middlesex State Rep Tara Hong from Lowell, signed on to by 17th State Rep Vanna Howard, also representing Lowell. So 2 of the 3 representatives from Lowell are in support of that housing for let religious sects create housing. I will reach out to them and try to get them in here over the next week or so to talk about the bill, their interpretation of it, and why they are supporting it. We'll see how it plays out. Let's see how the City Council reacts to that tonight. Another motion by Councilor 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 wants to get an update on the facilities staff to Lowell High School full-time. Councilor Robinson, anticipated timeline on draft construction employment ordinance. Councilor Yem wants a traffic mirror on Butterfield and Fletcher Street. Councilor Dakota, he's also asking for the progress of a facilities department. That would be an overall citywide facilities department as opposed to just the Lowell High School facilities department. Both of those motions being put forward. Both seem to have a lot of momentum, but the second one, the one by Councilor Dakota, the one he's addressing, that's going to involve some union/contract negotiation, I believe. The high school one seems like that should be coming at any point. Councilor Belanger wants to know about some repairs at the Shed Park Pavilion. Councilor Scott wants to see if plan to revitalize Central Street from Gorham to Elm Streets. Again, 7 motions. Nothing overly controversial there, although 5.1, the Councilor 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 motion, may or may not engender some good conversation. We'll end today's Trigger 'em Tuesday with the part that may or may not trigger him. Communications from the city manager, Lowell Police, current and actual receipts. I think that's in regards to how many citations they've handed out and how much they collect. Andover Street, that's probably speed, road construction things that from the past. West Meadow Road traffic calming. We're seeing an awful lot this election year, a lot of traffic calming measures coming forward on the council floor. Maintenance at the Riley School parking lots is E. F is Parks Division quarterly flag inspections, and then G is outdoor market. I skipped D, the one I've highlighted. Lord Overpass. Do we even call, is it still called the Lord Overpass? It doesn't pass over anything anymore. It used to be the Lord Overpass. It was a nice little raised rotary. Underneath it went all the cars in and out of the city. No traffic, no tie-ups, no waiting 27 light cycles or whatever. But for reasons unbeknownst to me, prior city councils, prior administrations, pushed no doubt by activists who love walking and love their bicycles, created this monstrosity of the Big Fill, as I dubbed it back in my radio days. They filled in that overpass. They widened everything, created all these new intersections, and now traffic moves through. I say far worse if you're coming in and out of the city. Maybe it's better on other roads. I don't think so, having driven many of them myself. But, you know, the one thing that seems to be uniting everybody on this is that bus lane in the center, that thing painted with the maroon color. Intended for buses, LRTA buses, Lowell Regional Transit Authority buses, to be able to bypass the traffic between the Gallagher Terminal and Dutton Street and head in and out of your downtown without getting into the other lanes and obstructing them, because buses take up 2 car lengths. You get multiple buses, and boy, you really fill up those intervals between the lights there and back up traffic. And folks are starting to get pissed because they're sitting in traffic, and I don't blame them. I'm one of them. I sit in traffic sometimes, and what do I see? I see a bus lane that's completely empty. Very rarely will you see a bus use that bus lane. You can count it. The number of times I've seen it, I can count it on one hand. You'll see emergency vehicles using it, right? Sometimes ambulances, fire, police. But very rarely will you see a bus use it. And we've been told that's because the lights weren't in sync. And the bus drivers felt like they were waiting forever to get through there. So they decided to wait forever with everybody else on the rest of the Big Phil. I don't get that. If I'm going to wait forever, I'm going to wait forever by myself, or I'm the first car in that line or the first bus in that line, so that when my light turns green, I can go and I'm not blocked by all the other cars ahead of me. And I can't go forward because I might block the intersection and get caught in the red light if those lights aren't in sync to funnel all that traffic out of there. Why the buses aren't using these? I don't know. A lot of other counselors are starting to wonder that. Why aren't the buses using these? So they asked for a report. And let's pop that report up for you, shall we? I've highlighted two key parts here. The first part. And this came from traffic engineer Elizabeth Altman. And by the way, I don't blame her for the Lord Overpass / Big Phil. She wasn't the traffic engineer at the time. I believe that was Natasha Vance's tenure when it was designed and constructed. But Elizabeth Altman is the one dealing with it now. And as you can see from the number 1 that I've highlighted, she writes in this motion response to Councilor Belanger as to buses and public safety vehicles using the emergency lane as well as light synchronization. She writes, the LRTA buses are not regularly using the bus lanes as the drivers do not find them efficient, even with the changes made to date. The city will continue working with the LRTA to encourage usage of this lane. So the bus drivers don't find them efficient, even with the changes made to date. So we took 2 really wide lanes, which is a good chunk of land. That's downtown property. That's city property. And we created it for buses. Yes, for emergency vehicles, it's nice to have them going through there. But given that the Gallagher Terminal, AKA the bus station and train station, are at the end of the Big Phil, and downtown is at the other end of it, giving buses a lane to go back and forth seemed like a good idea. Look, I was against this monstrosity from the get-go. Why not just have the overpass stay? Fix it up around there, but let cars go in and out, including the buses. And the bus drivers would have been just fine with that. But since we created this, and since we took up 2 wide lanes to allow buses to go through there, it'd be nice if the freaking buses went through there, wouldn't it? Instead of clogging up multiple cars in the regular travel lanes. They don't find them efficient. Well, why not? We were told the lights weren't synchronized. Well, now the lights are synchronized. Traffic engineer mentions that they've done stuff, adaptive signal technology, providing additional green time to Thorndike Street during peak hours. We were told the lights weren't working, in the solar glare, we couldn't see the lights. So they worked on that. The ambulances seem to have no problem using it. The fire trucks seem to have no problem using it. The police cars seem to have no problem using it. But the bus drivers, it's not efficient enough for them. If it's efficient enough for first responders, isn't it efficient enough for you? The traffic engineer says the city will continue working with the LRTA to encourage usage of this lane. Well, how about we just tell them you have to use it? How about the boss at the LRTA says, you know what? They paid millions of dollars. The project was $23 million. I bet the bus lanes accounted for a pretty significant chunk of that project. How about the bosses at the LRTA tell them, use the bus lanes? It's not efficient for you? Tough shit. Use them. Use them. That's what they were intended for. It's an insult to the taxpayers who paid for this stupid thing that you can't even, the people who get the pass, it's like being in a permanent funeral. You get to run everything you want. They created an avenue for you not to have to sit in traffic. And you say it's not efficient enough. Why? Is sitting in traffic with me efficient? Is that more efficient? Is that what they're trying to say? Well, if it is, then we can continue to work to fix it and maybe get more in and out time on the light cycles. Seems the city already did that. We still have backups, as I knew was going to happen, because once you put 5 light signals in an area where there were none previously, you're bound to create backups and stops and starts. Duh. You don't have to be a traffic engineer to know that. But then again, they didn't really care about me. They didn't care about you. Those of you sitting in that traffic in your car. Those of you backing up, sitting there frustratingly at the end of Thorndike, where Thorndike meets up with Fletcher, trying to get up that big fill. But you can't go, even though the light is blaring green for, I don't know, what is it, 45 seconds, a minute? But you can't go because up above, there's a red light that's blocking the traffic and nobody is moving out, which often includes multiple buses taking up 2 spots. So that when that light does turn green eventually up at the top, yours is now red. Or you get the a-holes who choose to just block the intersection. So if I'm coming out of a bank or coming out of Fletcher Street, I can't go across because people are blocking the intersection. Again, it's not just the bus driver's fault for this. The lunacy of taking a free-flowing traffic thing and deciding to put a bunch of lights between it, that created this, but the buses aren't helping. And they've got a nice, easy lane that they can use. If they're not going to use it, how about we just open it up? How about we just open it up into an express lane for everybody doing rush hour, right? You go into Boston, you go on the 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲 Bridge, going into Boston's big dig, the opposite of the big fill. But you've got an express lane, high passenger lane, right? Or they use those HOV lanes in Boston where they move those Jersey barriers left and right depending on the flow of traffic to create an extra lane. If the buses aren't going to use these things, how about we just open them up between 6 and 9 in the morning and between 3 and 6 in the afternoon/evening so everybody can use them. And maybe, just maybe, we'll alleviate traffic that way. If the buses don't want to use them, if the people who they were created for don't want to use them, then just let everybody else use them. Again, for a limited time or all day. I don't care because we've already paid to create those bus lanes. We might have to put some black ink over the red, black paint, instead of the fancy maroon red that we've given for the buses. But hey, if they don't want to use them, then let's open them up to everybody else. I hope a counselor actually brings that up tonight. Somebody please bring it up. The other part that pisses me off, because this is like pouring salt on an old wound or you know, reopening an old wound. Number 2. This is from traffic engineer Elizabeth Altman's report tonight. Response to the council. I've highlighted it for you. Feedback from pedestrians and bicyclists has been positive. These road users were a primary consideration during the design process. Aw, isn't that nice? The 2 bicyclists and the 5 pedestrians who aren't panhandlers absolutely love the new design. They're getting across just fine. Are they? Are they really? Is it any different than before? I walked that before the big fill. I went from my then apartment on Dutton Street out to Gorham Street to my mechanic and walked. I walked on sidewalk the whole way, paying $23 million for fancier sidewalks and wider lanes that the buses aren't going to use and whatnot. Is it really worth $23 million? But the pedestrians and the bicyclists, they absolutely love it. So too do the panhandlers. The panhandlers love it. They've got new fancier resting areas now. They can pack even more of their stuff while they're holding their signs and walking up and down, weaving in and out of traffic. The two twins there, or if they're not twins, they certainly are doppelgangers who hold up their mRNA vaccine signs and have been doing so since 2020. They must be loving it as well. But are the pedestrians loving it? Sorry, taking a sip of my water there. These road users were a primary consideration during the design process. And yes, they were. The traffic engineer at that time, Natasha Vance, specifically said to you and anybody watching that Lowell City Council meeting, when she was asked, we put more emphasis on pedestrians and bicyclists than motorists. Yep, she told you that. And Elizabeth Altman is confirming it for you. So they're happy. Ah, isn't that sweet? Where are these pedestrians? We were told by the advocates, the activists who were pushing the walkability and bikeability of this $23 million monstrosity, that this would open up. It would connect the Highlands to downtown, Cambodia Town to downtown. People would be able to walk where previously they couldn't. They'll be able to freely walk across this now 12-lane thing, however many lanes it is. It's like 10 lanes wide at certain points if you count the unused bus lanes. Maybe the bus lanes can become a park and people can just go sit in there. Maybe we'll put the panhandlers there so they're not stepping on the islands with all the flowers that we're hoping to get maintained there. But we were told people were going to suddenly, they would have come from the Highlands. They would have come from Cambodia Town into downtown, but for this impassable, impenetrable Lord Overpass, the Maginot Line of pedestrians. People couldn't go through it in theory. In reality, they could walk through it just as quickly as the Germans walked through the Maginot Line in World War II. Or was that World War I? Anyway, I digress. But we were told the creation of the Big Phil would part the traffic like Moses parting the Red Sea. And suddenly people would be able to flow across the desert as the Red Sea of traffic was parted. Where are they? Where are they? Go to the Lord Overpass. Again, you'll see a pedestrian, usually somebody walking up and down vertically Thorndike and Dutton Street, trying to get to the train station or to South Common as they have in the past, or making the return trip. You still see that. How many people do you see walking from Middlesex Street, Chelmsford Street, and Westford Street in the Highlands, walking to Appleton Street, Middlesex Street, and Jackson Street in downtown? Do you see people making that journey across the way? 1, 2 per stop? Are you seeing waves of people? Is this suddenly Midtown Manhattan, where people are lining up on the sidewalks waiting for that walk signal, and then they just flood across the streets? Are you seeing that? Because that's what we were told, right? The road user, these road users, aka the pedestrians and the bicyclists, they were a primary. I'm going to tell you, they were the primary. They got just as much weight as motorists, if not more. Do you see them walking across there? Have you seen this mass migration of economic development coming from the Highlands into your downtown, of pedestrians, of bicyclists? When's the last time you saw bicyclists on the Lord Overpass? Can they use the bus lane? Maybe if we let the bicyclists use the bus lane, that'll encourage the 50,000 of them that pedal through our city daily. I made that number up. You know I did. What? Sorry, I know the damage is done. The $23 million has been spent. For better or worse, the same number of pedestrians, the same number of bicyclists are using that new design as we're using it before. The mass migration of economic development coming through like Moses leading his people. Maybe we need Moses. Where's the guy with that stick? The guy who walks around downtown with those sticks that he makes, the walking sticks, the giant ones. Maybe that could be used as a staff like Moses had, and he can part the traffic and suddenly the migration will feel like they're okay to come downtown or walk the other way, whatever. Do we see the downtown residents flooding across to go to Cambodia town and try some of those great restaurants out? I don't see it. I come down there every day, at least twice a day, if not multiple times a day when I'm running errands. I don't see anything. All I see is backed up traffic where previously there was none. There's still backups on Middlesex, Appleton, and Jackson. There are still traffic backups on Middlesex on the Highland side, Westford and Chelmsford, just as there were before, except now we've created even more backups where previously there were none on Dutton and Thorndike. But the 3 pedestrians are happy. Unfortunately, the LRTA bus drivers, as we go back to number 1, it's just they don't find them efficient enough. How can we encourage them to find it efficient enough? I don't know. Do we ticket them? Do we tell them they have to use them? I mean, I'd certainly be okay with that. Maybe we strongly suggest it, that they use it. Maybe their boss at the LRTA tells them, you will use it, and we'll fix the efficiency part. Or better yet, just let everybody go through there. Again, make them like the express lane going into Boston, right? From 6 to 9 in the morning, peak rush hour, 3 to 6 in the afternoon, evening, peak rush hour. Let everybody use it because the buses aren't going to use it. They're not going to use it. All right. I feel better. I got that off my chest. It's an old wound, that Lord Overpass / Big Phil. And, they're confirming it for you today. What I told you 5-6 years ago is being confirmed today. And your own eyes are confirming it. You don't even need the traffic engineer to tell you, well, the pedestrians and bicyclists are happy. Yeah, but how many of them are there? Compare the pedestrians and bicyclists to the number of motorists who are using that thing. What are we doing? We're prioritizing, it's the equivalent of prioritizing the 25 homeless at South Common to the 120,000 residents of the city. It's nonsensical there. It's nonsensical at the Big Phil. All right, that's our show for today. Tomorrow, Lowell City Councilor Kim Scott will join us. We'll recap last night's meeting. We think we're going to have former Mayor Bill Samaras joining us as well for that podcast. We're also going to be dropping a new Boston Bros podcast tomorrow with former Lowell Sun editor Jim Campanini and Peter Lucas, political columnist for the Boston Herald. On Thursday, Matt LaLatcher will join us. Grandson of State Rep Ed LaLatcher, former Lowell City Council candidate. Matt LaLatcher, the initial victim of the Panos bump, as I reminded him in booking the show. But he is here to talk about a number of things, parks and baseball, Colley Stadium renovations, economic development in the city. Looking forward to having Matt make his debut on the Daily Pulse on Friday. Leslie Boder will be here as well. We'll have a big fun Friday. So a full week of the Daily Pulse still to come. Hope you're enjoying it. It drops every day at noon here on Inside Lowell, as we like to say, Inside Lowell. If Lowell is your home, this is your place. Till tomorrow, everybody, please stay safe. Enjoy what is shaping up to be a gorgeous spring day. And I'll catch you on the other side.